I know we kind of referenced it earlier, but I didn't get to really hear it from you. When an individual's listening right now, they're out of shape, they know they're probably insulin resistant. What is their best path in terms of becoming insulin sensitive over time? I mean, there's exercise, diet practices, but how would you have this individual approach it? Because I haven't also heard you talk anything about using potentially time restricted feeding for this, because I've heard a lot of, I think Jason Fung, that's his big practice, right? He has people fast sometimes for multiple day fasts, et cetera. And that's one of his big practices to help people get out of diabetes, et cetera. So how would you have people approach this?
Yeah. So if we're talking about the solutions, either you never want to get insulin resistance or you want to reverse it, it is very straightforward. But let me also say, many people listening might not think they're insulin resistant, but I would say this: if you're a little overweight and you have high blood pressure, done. You are almost certainly insulin resistant. If you are a little overweight and you have little bumps of skin, little skin tags at your armpits or around your neck, you are most certainly insulin resistant. So these are some simple signs that a person could use that probably will indicate that they're not as good as they think they are. And if we're talking about a guy, then he probably does think he's better, as guys tend to do. And if it's a girl, then you probably already are hard enough on yourself. And so, you're done. But for the guys who are listening, we always think these things don't apply to us, but it very likely does. So one, exercise, absolutely start moving those muscles. And one, it's because of the mechanism we talked about earlier, this insulin independent glucose uptake, which can just help control the glucose and control the insulin. But every little ounce of muscle you pack on, you've expanded the drain for pulling in glucose from the blood. Basically, you've made yourself that much more insulin sensitive, which is why at the lower end of exercise, perhaps, if someone is trying to, they're asking themselves, all right, what can I do with the 2 hours that I have each week to most effectively as possible improve my insulin sensitivity? Resistance train. Increase your muscle mass, because muscle mass is going to be the biggest predictor of how insulin sensitive you are, because by mass, muscle's the biggest insulin responsive tissue. So get some muscle on those little bones, grandma or anyone else, get some muscle. And then to do that effectively, just one other tangent, go to failure. Whatever you're going to do, go to failure, or work yourself up to that point where whatever you're doing it to failure. If you're just doing some push-ups, maybe for the first few days you're doing it until it's burning, and then you stop if you're starting from scratch. But eventually you want to get to the point where you're going to failure, to just maximize that time and maximize some of the anabolic effect of that. But I honest to goodness, I mean this, I would genuinely defer to you guys on that. So exercise, though, whatever you're going to do it. Now, with regards to food, that is the elephant in the room. I'd laid out a couple of my pillars earlier to how to eat smart, and I'll just reiterate them. Control your carbs. Focus on the least starchy, least sugary foods. If it's grains and any processed foods, avoid them. When it comes to carbohydrates, avoid any carbohydrates that come in a bag or a box with a barcode. Focus on real carbohydrates, fruits and vegetables in particular, and you're generally going to be okay with that. Second, prioritize protein. Make sure you're getting around 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of ideal body weight. And if we're talking about if someone's listening and they're very, very overweight, that would put you into a realm of you eating genuinely too much protein for what your body needs. So put that amount at what you're wanting to get to. If you weigh 250 and you think you ought to be 200, then look at that. Well, that's pounds though, so I'm mixing up my units here. But 1 gram per kilogram of ideal body weight, 1 to 1.5. And the older you get, one of the myths, the older you get, the more protein you need. We become resistant to the anabolic effects of protein as we age. And so the older you get, the more you need to be at that higher end of the protein consumption. So that's a general range, but of course it can go higher in people that are, very muscled and really working out a lot. But that's the second one, prioritize protein, and it has to come from animal sources. Anything else, you're wasting time and money. Third, fill with fat. Don't be afraid of fat. Fat has no effect on insulin, so be liberal with it when you're adding it to these protein-rich foods. But one important caveat, in nature, fat and carbs don't come together. They don't come together, except for one exception I know, which is milk. And milk is high in all 3 macros, which means it's a perfect cocktail for growth, which is why that mom mammal will make it for her baby, because those 3 high macros will help that little chubby baby grow healthy quickly. So the role of dairy, I'm a little conflicted on adults drinking dairy, but I would say if you're drinking milk, make sure it's full fat milk. Don't take that fat out. God put that fat there for a reason. Who the hell do you think you are to take it out? So eat it with fat. Then my 4th pillar is now fasting. And that is I sort of say tongue in cheek, watch the clock. And there are multiple different ways to fast. Indeed, Jason Fung, whom I consider a friend, I know him well. He uses multiple interventions, like a 1-1 or a 5-2 or an 18-6. So there are many, many ways to do this, whether it's different day fasting or time restricted eating within a 24-hour window. Anything you can do to take a break from food will, 1, help your discipline, which is I think that's an eternal lesson, frankly, improve your discipline, but also it'll give your body a break from insulin, especially in the morning. If someone is going to be strict or fast, let your breakfast be the one meal you scrutinize the most, because you have worked hard overnight to bring your insulin down. And as insulin has come down, now you've shifted to fat burning. Don't stop that. Most people do, unfortunately. They wake up, they eat 2 bowls of cereal or 5 bagels or whatever, and they spike up their glucose and insulin, then they do it again 2 hours later and 2 hours later. And every waking moment is spent elevated insulin, which means they're stuck in sugar burning mode. Good luck becoming insulin sensitive and burning fat. So really, I'd say anyone listening, start tomorrow. Get smarter about your breakfast. Throw away that cereal, toss out those bagels and that toast or whatever else you normally eat. Either fast through breakfast and drink a cup of tea or something like that, or eat breakfast but focus on protein and fat. Eggs are a breakfast staple. Eat eggs, eat some bacon, eat a steak or whatever, but focus on protein and fat. Let that low insulin state that you finally achieved in throughout the night, let it stay low.